everyone has a nice evening. Meet your host Farah Arinah for a unique segment of Noonas Talk dedicated just to all ladies out there discussing and sharing personal issues with one another. So in today's episode, we'll discuss workplace etiquette from the perspective of Muslim women. So please join me in introducing Miss Nadirah Azmi, Miss Augi Nurin Fatini, and Miss Siti Khadijah for a discussion on workplace manners. Besides, I would like to express my gratitude to everyone who continues to support this exclusive Extrofix chat show, and let's have a break with Noonas Talk. So if you don't mind, ladies, please introduce yourself so that our amazing viewers here can discover more about you.
Thank you, Miss Farah. Hello, I'm Nadirah Binti Azmi. I am chief reporter from News Trade Times News. I've been in this field about more than 10 years. It is a pleasure to be invited in this show. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Augi Nurin Fatini, Senior Manager from Awana Corporation. I'm glad to be here.
Hello everyone, my name is Siti Khadijah and I work in the public relations of Berjaya Gemilang Group Sdn Berhad. Thank you for inviting me to this talk show.
Thank you so much and nice meeting you all. So without wasting any time, let's us share our point of views about workplace etiquette from Muslim women's perspective. But before we discuss in more depth, I would like to explain in general terms what a workplace etiquette is. So workplace etiquette means the socially acceptable ways that we interact with one another and behave in our workplace. Therefore, I would like to ask our guests about their perspectives about women attire in the workplace, which is how Muslim women should dress. Okay, so the whole modest attire needs to be considered and thought about very, very carefully. So some Muslim women questioning themselves whether do they have to wear only abaya or jubah or traditional clothes like baju kurung, etc. to work, or they can actually change into other types of clothing, especially in modern fashion nowadays. So this clearly tells from this that there's a pressure that wants them to conform to certain things. That is why the choice of where we as a Muslim woman go and where we work are very, very important. This demonstrates that workplace attire is quite significant for the etiquette of workplace, particularly for Muslim women, as it should stress certain aspects such as the aura and so on. As a response, I want to hear your perspective on the subject. Please.
Thank you, Miss Farah. It is my pleasure to be one of the guests, and thank you again. Therefore, without wasting our time, we will talk about the first point, women attire in the workplace. In my opinion, we Muslim women have been oppressed long that we forgot about our rights. Take an example that happening in Malaysia. The Malaysian government's plan to introduce a dress code for Muslim women especially, in the workplace has been sparked a backlash from women's rights groups, which accuse officials of acting like fashion police. Women in the Muslim majority country, which have a large population of ethnic and religious minorities, have been barred from government office in the past for their attire that officials deem an incident such as skirts or shorts. Those who work in the civil service already have to follow regulations that typically prohibit women from wearing sleeveless tops or skirts above knee levels. But the government has now said it is in the final stage of drawing up guidelines for Muslim women in the private sector, which will comply with Islamic principles. No details have been made public, but Malaysian women's rights groups condemn the dress code. Tan Hyang Lee of the Women's Aid Organization branded it as dehumanizing. She told the Thomson Reuters Foundation that there has been a trend where various agencies attempt to police women's bodies and their clothing. Why is there this obsession with what women wear? They should be focusing on women's talent and capability. The last thing we should be thinking of is the length of women's skirts. Mujahid Yusuf Rawa, a minister who oversees religious affairs, told Parliament that the guidelines are meant to protect Muslim women who wish to wear two headscarf or other Islamic garb. Islamic groups has previously complained about policies at some hotels that reportedly ban female frontline staff from wearing headscarves. Some hotels that reportedly Some groups have also criticized female flight attendant uniforms as being too tight and un-Islamic. The leading right group Sister in Islam said the government should, instead of focusing on women's clothing, prioritize eliminating discrimination to protect women from injustice and bigotry. It is not right to try to control what women wear. Siti Yusuf, a female lawmaker from the conservative Pan-Asian Islamic Party who is in favor of dress code, said on Twitter that covering rising conservatism and gender equality in Malaysia, which was, the Conservative Pan Malaysia Islamic Party, who is in favor of dress code, he reignited a debate about rising competition, gender inequality in Malaysia, which was ranked 104 out of 144 countries in the World Economic Forum's 2017 Gender Gap Index after scoring poorly on political empowerment. The numerous laws that have emerged to restrict people from wearing religious clothing are an aggressive, intrusive interpretation of secularism. Therefore, feminists, politicians, and the media frequently advocate against women oppression by criticizing the head staff, and in doing so, silence Muslim women, deny them their right to choose what they wear and to practice their faith more in attire. That's all from me.
I think I agree with me, Azmi, because in reality, most small companies deliberate between establishing a strict dress code or having unspoken expectation on what is and what is not acceptable workplace attire.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Thank you for sharing your thoughts about this. After all, in the workplace, how you display yourself to others says a lot. People often create first impression of individuals within seconds of meeting them. So it's critical to make sure you're ready to portray yourself as a professional. So let us now moving on to discuss and comment on a topic of workplace etiquette that is a well-known issue in the workplace, especially regarding gossiping. As far as we know, we will never be able to rid ourselves of the problem of the workplace of gossiping, which has become a breach of workplace etiquette and is extremely difficult to eradicate because it appears to have been the standard and common thing in the workplace. So now, ladies, what are actually your honest thoughts and comments about the issue of gossiping at the workplace?
I think office gossiping has become widespread in most companies and organizations, big or small. It also can cause work conflict, even destroy reputation. Office gossip can range from pleasant chit-chat to malevolent behind-the-back conversation among co-workers. Co-workers may be engaged in a gossip episode about other co-workers. According to Cole and Dalton 2009, 40% of office coffee break discussion is truly gossiping about employees, and around 60% of general conversation between employees is devoted to social themes involving gossip about other individuals. There are many harmful impacts that office gossiping can have on the workplace, but mainly I will focus only two. Okay, the first one is excessive gossiping produces a backstabbing environment that can become uncomfortable place to work. It also can lead to higher turnover rates, which can place the organization at a competitive disadvantage. Furthermore, gossip can result in violation of company policy that may lead to disciplinary action, including termination. Dear guests who are watching our show right now, I would like to share some tips on how to manage gossip in the workplace. First, avoid spreading any information that you are not 100% sure of being factual. Think how you will feel if someone were to say the same thing about you. Don't play broken telephone. Broken telephone refers to any situation where information is passed on by a number of people, often becoming misinterpreted in the process. Don't validate the gossip with a comment, and don't allow yourself to listen to the gossiper. When someone tries to involve you in a gossip, you can say, "It is really not my place to comment," then change the subject completely. If the gossiper continue, this is the right time to excuse yourself because you have that important call to make. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Miss Augi. Listening to Miss Augi, I agree with what she had mentioned earlier. Gossip has its own pros and cons. Some gossip can be petty and unprofessional, while other types of gossiping can be fun, normal, even healthy and productive. I have read some from an article where the experts say that talking about others behind their backs doesn't have to be a guilty office pastime. It can also be a useful tool to navigate the workplace and learn important information. Gossip can also validate our emotions and help us figure out where other people stand on things, and gossip help us make sure if the way we are perceiving the world in the same way as other colleagues and co-workers receive it. It is really about information gathering. However, hearing gossip about colleagues can also make us more self-reflective, while being the subject of gossip can cause people to change their behavior. Negative gossip made the listener feel superior to the person being gossiped about, thus boosting self-esteem. It also made the listener feel more vulnerable to similar treatment. Meanwhile, listening to flattering gossip gave listeners ideas about how to improve themselves, so they could be more like the person being gossiped about. Therefore, we have to really choose which type of gossip that we want to include all the time so that it doesn't affect ourselves.
That is absolutely correct, and I completely agree with you. I feel like gossiping is one of the cardinal evils of office work, and that it should be avoided at all costs. If you're tempted to gossip about your employer or co-worker or the organization as a whole, remember that you are only harming yourself. This is because gossiping can make you appear untrustworthy or uncooperative, neither of which will help you or achieve your professional objectives. It can also be extremely destructive if the gossip reaches the intended recipient. So moving on to our final point in the workplace etiquette discussion, which is the general interaction between men and women at work. So usually when we are at our workplace, we will probably be going to be working so closely with others. Sometimes what we've seen is that there will be a man and woman who will actually work with other men and women. So a man or a husband who will work with other women, as you know, somebody he is either training with or somebody is working with, likewise with women. So you have the same kind of thing that there are people that you work with at work very closely on the same kind of project, for example. And when it comes to projects, then there are obviously some projects are successful and some projects have challenges. In order to deal with challenges, there is certain mindset and emotion that is required when you are collaborating with others. Then you start to bond together because you start to realize that you have to think together, right? So you have to pull your ideas together and you have to think like one another to try to come up with a solution. So what all of does as human beings is that it creates an emotional bond between the people as well in order for them to become successful in their particular project or work and to achieve their goal. So therefore it will obviously bring people together. Likewise, when there is a failure, then you will comfort one another with your colleague about the failure, like it's okay, don't worry about it, we're going to do well next time, etc. These are very emotional moments. What they do is they actually reveal your personality a lot. So when you're working very close together, your personality is going to be revealed, and when your personality is revealed, then there are some things we should put off other people, and there are obviously other things which will attract other people. So what are your views or perspective if you find yourself in this situation?
Well, thank you, Miss Farah. As we work to create more equitable workplaces, we need to understand and support the needs of all identities that have been marginalized or undeserved. As for in Malaysia, there are many mixed races in a company. Regarding to this matter, Muslims have always maintained that the mere presence of women in the same place as men is not prohibited in itself. The prohibition only concerns the manner of mixing when it contradicts the guidelines of Islamic law, such as men and women exposing those parts of their bodies which must remain covered, males and females gathering for an unlawful purpose, or an unlawful seclusion between the sexes or touching. As far as I know, for business affairs, which require for men and women to remain in the same place, there is no legal impediment for them to be together should the atmosphere is secured from temptation and private seclusion. The mere existence of both men and women in the same place is not prohibited in itself as what is prohibited in the seclusion of men and women in a locked place where no one can enter. Therefore, if there is no prohibited private seclusion with a woman is man, it is permissible for the man to enter a place where there is a woman. There are one tip that I can share to all of our friends, Muslim or non-Muslim out there, so that we can understand and respect each other's boundaries better, which is Islam promotes some guidelines for the ways men and women interact that are good for colleagues and managers to be aware of. Blog shares that there are differing opinions on what is permissible, and Muslims will have different comfort zones. Some Muslim men and women may keep their gaze down, avoid shaking hands, or refrain from mingling with a member of the opposite sex. Non-Muslims should know that this is not meant to offend or be disrespectful. When it comes down to it, honoring the differing comfort levels of all employees should be common practice. As the expert points out, all of us want to create a workplace that is safe and respectful for everyone. Muslims come from a diverse backgrounds, practices, and personal preferences. Before engaging in physical forms of greetings, such as a handshake or hug, it's best to either ask how your colleague prefers to be greeted or wait to see how they extend the greeting. That's all from me.
Pardon me for interruption, but I had to quickly add on another example. So, if a man has an assignment that requires you to work with a girl, meet her in public and somewhere that carries a professional air, meaning a library rather than a pizza place. Also very important that you meet at an appropriate time. Late night meetings going into midnight to work on a project are not acceptable. If you can bring a third person with you just to hang out nearby. If you're working on a project, be very cognizant of the time. Do not phone call when it's dark or everyone has gone to sleep. Ask yourself if the man's father or her father walk in on one of us, would I feel embarrassed and started to explain myself? No, Dad, we're just talking about project planning at midnight, I promise. While that might not be even true, you know how it would look to others and you will feel queasy. Some people may object and say that it is hypersexualizing men and women, and that the insinuation is that the second a man and woman are alone together, they'll jump on each other. That's not true, and it's not at all what is being said or even hinted at. Absolutely, the first time you're alone with a practicing Muslim sister, it will almost definitely be a completely professional conversation. The second time, the third time, the fourth time as well. The 10th time you feel at ease and crack a joke and you wouldn't have before. And by the 50th time, you both are completely free with each other and have formed emotional bonds which are very real. And when that happens, we never know what might happen next. That's all from me. Back to
Yes.
you.
Very informational comment, and I appreciate your both honesty. Thank you so much. I also think that we must respect gender boundaries as it is a part of workplace etiquette. Islam promotes some guidelines for the ways men and women interact that are good for colleagues and managers to be aware of. So that's why what Islam says is that if you ever are in a situation where you have to speak, especially for a woman to speak to the opposite gender, then try not to have any kind of softened, alluring speech that you use, but try to speak in a kind of very like you don't have to speak in an unusually harsh tone, because that is not what it means that you have to then speak like some kind of wild person. But at the same time, it says that you shouldn't speak in alluring tone, and it's actually should a very upfront, firm, and formal. And I think that is what it is. So generally say that you have to be professional in this kind of relationship and settings, as well as do not be personal. Every interaction you have is colored by emotion, both yours and the person or people you interact with. So I believe we have reached the conclusion of our Noonas Talk show session. A huge thank you to everyone who attended, especially our our three guests, you all did an outstanding job speaking and providing a professional perspective on these workplace etiquette issues. I feel that the information and debate provided thus far will assist Muslim women in becoming a better and more courageous in their actions. I look forward to work with you guys again another time. Thank you so much and have a nice day. Goodbye.
Thank you.